Good morning, friends. Thanks for joining this morning here, Journey Home Meditation for the morning sit. My name is Michael. I'm going to be here this morning. We're going to do a little poetry reading. I've got a poem set up by Wendell Berry. So settle in. We'll have some poetry, some shared meditative practice, and all that says I'm happy to be here. All right. I hope everybody had a good week this last week. I know that the holiday, Thanksgiving holiday can be, um, it can be beautiful for sure, but it could also be tumultuous for some, and it can be a really difficult day for a number of reasons. But I hope that in the work that we are all doing, we are finding our way into being motivated towards love, being motivated towards healing. Um, and that requires action, right? That requires us to have uh, some level of engagement with what it is that we are um, hurt by and how it is we are hurting others. And there's a level, where Thanksgiving can represent the whitewashing of history and the invisibilizing or attempt to invisibilize the genocide of Native peoples all over this continent. And really, this continent kind of represents the launching point for colonization of the West. Um, and so having a day like Thanksgiving, which, as children in the US, we're raised being taught that this was a beautiful celebration of unity between indigenous peoples and uh, colonizers that were coming over. And we, of course, have learned differently since then. But, there is still levels of truth to what the first Thanksgiving could have stood for. I have a friend who is pretty active in Indigenous resistance, very active in Indigenous resistance, and this friend is Algonquin in their lineage, and they talk about the specific history that they share around the Thanksgiving meal as being representational of the ways in which their people have passed on and grown is to be giving and to be forgiving and to be kind and to share with those in need, even if those in need are ones who you don't have the best relations with. And so this person talks about how they see this time as a celebration of the values that their people have held since time immemorial. And talking with this person, this has been a number of years for me. It's probably been 15 years now since I shared conversation. And I shared conversation with this person on a radio program I used to do a long time ago, an anarchist radio show. And it was really enlightening for a lot of reasons, but one of which was that there's a lack of humility that comes with believing that everything is your fault, or that you are somehow responsible for the way others feel. I think that that's in some ways where this comes down to. Um, this is nothing to do with the, well, I can't say it has nothing to do. I am not addressing directly the realities um, of the ongoing genocide of indigenous peoples all over the world as a way. I am not addressing this as a way to discount those realities. I'm addressing this as a way to understand our roles as interdependent upon one another for healing. Um, and so to take it out of that level of engagement, let's move to a different level of our. We have these levels that we um, exist in, right? There's the physical level, there's the spiritual level, and there's levels within those levels, of course. And the engagement of all of these things, they all intersect. They all are interdependent upon one another. Um, and so, just as much as we can discuss uh, how we will move forward and create restorative justice practices as a culture, uh, on a cultural level, on a mass level, we can also bring into the discussion what's very real for almost all of us, if not all of us, is the interpersonal relationships that we have with people who have harmed us or people we have harmed. So if you are a member of a family, chances are you've experienced this. You've experienced being harmed and causing harm. Um, I think that in some ways it's inevitable. In some ways, it's inevitable that we're going to hurt one another. Um, and it's true enough, at least, to say that it's the reality is we have, many of us, been deeply harmed. Uh, and so when we come into a holiday that is based around gratitude for family, this has been a family holiday predominantly in this country. I mean, where this holiday originates, it's been this way for as long as I've known it, and I think it's been this way for longer than I've been around. uh, the idea of coming together with your family and sharing bounty, sharing harvest, and having gratitude is a beautiful, beautiful mindset. It's a beautiful place to begin, but it's not always that easy for us, because that can mean we're sitting in a space with someone who has physically harmed us or emotionally harmed us, or sitting in a space with those whom we have caused distress or harm to. And we haven't yet figured out how to heal the togetherness that can be there, or to heal separately, even if that's what's necessary. Um, And so I was thinking about that a lot this week. We had a community meal that we do every year, and about 250 of us ate together and shared space and laughter and played games and took turns serving food to one another and cleaning up after one another. And we did it in a public space, so it was open to all. And that meant open to anyone who would walk in. There's no um, there's no list of those who are not welcome, right? So that could mean that at any moment you might be sitting directly across from someone who you didn't necessarily want to see at that time, but for some reason you're brought together there. And I think that there's some real power in these moments. There's an opportunity in these moments when we can take that rest, that day of rest, from our resistance, And when we can take that day of rest from reliving our trauma, and not everyone can do this all the time. Sometimes it's nearly impossible seeming. But when we can get to that place in doing the work that we do, that we can allow for things to be as they are, even if it's not as we wanted them to be in that moment, knowing that we will get through this moment. And we can let down those guards and let down that resistance. There's an opportunity there for shift. There really is. Because there's a lot of hubris in thinking that we can fix or maintain anything that is out of our control. There's a lot of hubris in thinking that somehow we have something to do with the hearts of others, and even sometimes our own heart. And what I mean by that is there is only so much we can do intentionally. There's only so much we can love on purpose. Beyond that, there is this magic that is occurring all of the time where our hearts are being filled by an unseen force. There's this magic that can occur when we allow it to, by putting down our guards and putting down our hands and dropping our tools. Stop working. You can till a garden all you want, but you cannot be responsible for the blooming of the flower. Right? That's something that's happening outside of your locus of control. And when we recognize that we can be safe in our discomfort, and when we recognize that we can be whole in our fragmented feelings, then it opens us up to possibilities of healing together. There's no prescription for it. No one says you have to do it. But to recognize that to be responsible in relationships with others means that we have to tend to our own anger, and we have to tend to our own feeling of separation. Doing that work then shifts that dynamic. It shifts the dynamic of what we are bringing into and what we are taking responsibility for in this relationship that we have with every living thing, and everything that was once living and everything that will live. There is no way to not be a part of the whole. It doesn't happen. It can't happen. I haven't seen a way that it can happen. If you can show me a way that you can exist completely independent of everything and still be a part of it all, I'd like to see it, but I don't think that's going to happen. As far as I know, and as far as I understand, there's no way for me not to be a part of the oneness of everything, which means there's no way for the person who I have such resistance built up around to not be a part of it. That person is a part of it. Like, there's no way to separate out those who we choose and those who we would rather not share space with. Of course, we can create safer spaces for ourselves. We can create closed spaces. We can create these, the word that people use a lot now is containers for specific people, women's groups, men's groups, LGBTQ plus groups. You can have these kind of, I don't want to say closed, but these protected spaces for specific groups of people to come together temporarily. But if you start to think that you can exist only with those whom you identify closely with, you forget how important each element is. You forget that a garden isn't all flowers, that it's also compost. And compost is made of the things we throw out. Right? It's the refuse. Refuse. See the connection. The things we refuse on their own, left to themselves, can transform and nourish us. We just have to allow ourselves to not think we have control of every relationship. And I was thinking about that a lot this week and how important that is becoming in my life, to see this in the way that my relationships unfold. I've talked about it in the past few weeks, about the ways in which I will insert some level of control as a protection for my emotions. If I can be a part of an influence, or another word for influence is manipulate, if I can manipulate a situation to fit my desires, then I think that I have some level of control. But inevitably, the magic has nothing to do with my labor, right? And so, of course, I flipped open a book to a random page today, and it was uh, This Day. It's Wendell Berry's latest, one of his latest collections of Wendell Berry's work. It's a new collection of Sabbath poems. I've read from his book A Timbered Choir, which is a collection of Sabbath poems. From It's the first of the collection of Sabbath poems, and this one is includes some of those, but includes a lot of other ones. And this one is oddly enough, it's from 1979, and that's the year I was born. And not only that, this is in the week. The Sabbath poems he writes on the Sabbath, right? And I'm not sure if Wendell Berry's Sabbath is Saturday or Sunday. I don't know, but I know that each week he has one day of rest that he's very loyal to maintaining. And on that day, he lollygags and he writes poems. And he does nothing discernible as work on that day. But this is the Sabbath poem that he wrote the week that I was born. Whatever is foreseen in joy must be lived out from day to day. Vision held open in the dark by our 10,000 days of work. Harvest will fill the barn, for that the hand must ache, the face must sweat. And yet no leaf or grain is filled by work of ours. The field is tilled and left to grace that we may reap. Great work is done while we're asleep. When we work well, a Sabbath mood rests on our day and finds it good. This poem this morning was a huge signpost on the path that says, hey, don't forget this. As you work through all of your struggles and everything that you're doing, all of your hard work that is valid and it is real, it is not the whole story. And you need to let it go just a bit more. And when you come in the Sabbath mood, it says, when we work well, a Sabbath mood rests on our day and finds it good. What is a Sabbath mood? What is the Sabbath mood? I mean, the Sabbaths across religions, right? Whether it's a pagan practice, a Wiccan practice of the Sabbaths, these high holy days, or whether it's a Judeo-Christian, a Jewish or a Christian, or even a Muslim practice of the day of rest, right? And we see this across other religions as well. I know that at Thich Nhat Hanh's Plum Village tradition is to have a lazy day. They call it lazy day. one day a week. It's the same idea. It's the same thing. It's a day that we stop utilizing our inertia to manipulate, and we just rest and enjoy and relax. And I think that when Wendell Berry talks about a Sabbath mood, uh, it's not just saying on the Sabbath. I think that taking that into our daily lives and into each interaction, there's got to be a place where we rest within the interbeing of our relationship. There's got to be a space where we find that safety to rest. You know, in the work that I do, I work with a lot of people who don't experience safe spaces to be. They don't have a home to go to that they can relax or unwind in, right? Unwinding the coiled body. They don't have that. Um, they don't have safe places where they can not have to be on guard for harassment or the police moving them along or serving them a warrant or arresting them for failure to appear or whatever it may be. You know, failure to appear on a vagrancy charge. You know what I mean? Like, uh, and so they come, and oftentimes within a matter of moments, they sit and they're tense and they're tight. And once they step into the space, if we have done our work properly, their shoulders will drop and their eyes will close and they will rest. That's when we know we're doing something right, when we are providing a space where someone can feel safe enough to rest. That's a big deal. And I've worked in a very large mental health organization that would not allow me to allow people to rest. They wanted me to wake them up, and I refused. I said, no, I won't do that. That's not part of my job. I'm going to allow someone to rest. And there was a lot of tension, and that's one of the main reasons I left that organization. Because rest is a way of saying to someone, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to rest here a while. And when we rest within our relationships, you know, if you're fighting, you're arguing, you're embroiled in this battle with one another, and I'm holding to my, you know, my consternation that you aren't doing this properly, you know, and I get this way sometimes. And I think a lot of that is my training and the way that I've learned to avoid my suffering is to do it right, do it correctly. And I start to insist that. And then sometimes the person just says, can we just take a break? And then you go, yeah. And you don't realize how much tension you've held in your neck and in your shoulders, and you don't understand how furrowed your brow has been and how you're holding back each breath until someone invites you to just take a break, just rest. And then you go, ah, and you breathe easy. And that rest is a way that your body says thank you to your mind, and the way that your mind says thank you to your spirit, and a way that your spirit says thank you to the greater whole of existence. When we can just rest with one another, just rest. So thank you, Wendell Berry. You're out there talking to God for us on our behalf. And then taking notes. I appreciate that very much. I think Wendell Berry is an American treasure of poetry. I think that if every president had someone like Wendell Berry to have in their high council, we would probably be in a much kinder, more compassionate space than we have ever been in. So I can't recommend reading Wendell Berry enough. Wendell Berry is important to me. But thank you all for coming. Let's take a moment of rest. Let's bring a Sabbath mood into this space. Just placing our feet flat to the floor or crossing our legs in any number of ways, we can begin to move into awareness of our body. And the best way that I've found to do that is to have awareness of the breath. So just take a moment and see right now, how are you breathing? Are you breathing through your mouth and gulping momentary lapses of breath? You suck it in as quick as you can and then hold on to it as long as you can? Or are you breathing slowly in through the nose and savoring the experience of each breath? How is your out breath? Is it stuttered, and do you have to force the air out? Maybe you're having a difficult time today letting go of something. So take a breath and just say the words, letting go. Letting go. Just notice there's a little bit of magic there. When you say the words and breathe out together, all of a sudden the breath leaves easier. Breathing in gently through the nose to the bottom of the belly. Letting go. Allow yourself to find that moment of rest between the in-breath and the out-breath. And that moment after you've breathed out, before you breathe in again, just rest in that space. Breathing in. Letting go. Notice just a few minutes of gentle breath, paying that attention to your body. I tell my students that attention is the currency of love. Mary Oliver says that attention is the beginning of devotion. I love that. I love it. I love devotees. I always have. I don't mind so much what they're devoted to. I don't even mind cult members. I love the notion of being devoted so fully to something that you love, that you arrive and you bring fresh flowers and you weave garlands and you sweep the dust from the feet of the deities, whatever it is. And you wake up every morning and you bake the loaves of bread to feed the other devotees and the people who come in needing to fill their bellies, whatever it is you do. I've always loved devotional practices. And when I discovered that this is a devotional practice to the breath, it changed my relationship to my own body and to the way that I breathe. To be able to have a devotional practice of breathing. And then I started to see the similarities as my belly and my chest rise and fall and rise and fall, like going prostrate in the face of divinity. You step into a holy space and you fall to the ground and you lay your face on the earth. And then you rise and you gaze upon the thing that you adore, and then you fall with your face to the earth, and then you rise. My body does this with each in-breath and each out-breath. And if you're to believe any of the historical science of any of these religions, then you're going to see how creation is in the breath. This is why the in-breath is called inspire, to bring in spirit, to inspire, and to expire, to put spirit out. You know, this relationship to spirit, spiritus in the Latin means breath. So this is a devotional practice, and it changed everything for me. It really did. It changed the way that I stop for a moment, and instead of holding tension in my body or running first thing to my phone, I first check my breath. Just breathing in and releasing. This, I think, is what Windleberry means with a Sabbath mood. So thanks for being here, everyone. I so appreciate being able to share this space with you. Yeah.